Hey guys, this is a sample of the new YouTube channel and podcast that is coming 2023. This is the storytelling, so sit back and enjoy this sample, sit back and enjoy this story, and let me know if you will be subscribing to the expanded Saysso universe. You may think murders today are heinous, but what about the murders of yesteryear? You're listening to Saysso Tales with Ashley Saysso. Welcome to the dark side of storytelling. By the mid-1920s, the city of Chicago was fresh off a booming growth spurt. It had become home to several wealthy and affluent families. Two of these families were the Leopold family and the Loeb family. The Leopold family made their fortune in Germany before coming to America, and the Loeb family was headed by the successful lawyer and ex-vice president of Sears Roebuck, Albert Henry Loeb. Both families shared status and influence, and both families also shared exceptionally intelligent teenage sons, Nathan Freudenthal Leopold Jr. and Richard Albert Loeb. So bright were these boys that they were both enrolled in the University of Chicago while still in their early teens. It was here at the University of Chicago that Leopold and Loeb began a friendship that would at first flourish to the highest peak and then degrade to the lowest of the low. You see, Leopold and Loeb recognized the genius each other possessed, and when they did, it made them feel invincible. They would sometimes sit around all day speaking on how they were the real-life supermen and everyone else were just mere mortals. They opined on how they should be given preferential treatment in life because everyone else were just followers and robots, and nobody else thought for themselves the way they did. As they talked, laughed, and giggled about their superiority, the boys would also break small rules, feeling as though nobody had the right to correct them, because who would correct them? They were the smartest guys on campus. In order for somebody to correct them, that person had to be smart enough to solve the crimes in the first place. And since Leopold and Loeb were at the tip of the iceberg when it came to brains, there would be nobody smart enough to catch them at anything they did. It was talk like this that really got the boys going. They were constantly patting each other on the back and lavishing praise on each other. Soon, though, Leopold started to notice that Loeb's praise became a bit more intimate. Instead of Loeb just patting Leopold on the back, he was now using his hand to gently sweep away Leopold's hair from his face. Leopold also noticed Loeb's touches all around were getting more and more frequent and more gentle. Soon it was an undeniable fact that Loeb had developed romantic feelings for Leopold. And Leopold did not respond with shock or disgust. On the contrary, he actually responded by wrapping Loeb up into his arms and taking the pleasures that Loeb was offering. As much as Loeb wanted to believe that this was love, however, he was wrong. Leopold had given into Loeb's affections for a much more sinister reason. Remember when we talked about how both boys felt they were above the law? How they felt they could get away with anything because others would be too stupid to even realize what was going on? Well, Leopold had been planning the perfect crime in his head, and he was now planning to use Loeb's affections as a weapon. Leopold would soon sit down and write Loeb several letters, telling him how he was craving his touch and he could not wait for the next night they could spend together. But the only way their intimacy could be fulfilled is if Loeb helped him commit his heart's desire, a perfect crime. And the crime Leopold thought of in particular involved another wealthy boy from Chicago. But this boy was no college teen. He was actually 14-year-old Bobby Franks, whom was the son of the watch manufacturer Jacob Franks. Once Leopold laid out all of the details, Loeb may or may not have been horrified to learn what was planned for Bobby Franks. But in either case, his love for Leopold and his lust for carnal pleasures led him to help in any way he could. So on the afternoon of May the 21st, 1924, the boys put their plan in motion. Using a rented automobile under the name of Morton D. Ballard, they offered Bobby Franks a ride as the young boy walked from school. Bobby initially refused because his destination was less than 2 blocks away, but Loeb yelled out from the back seat and persuaded him to enter the car. He told him that he wanted to discuss a tennis racket that he had been using. Once Bobby entered the car, he sat up front with Leopold, who was driving, and they proceeded to drive away as Loeb talked from behind, feigning ignorance on the model and make of the tennis racket, asking Bobby if he could help with any of the info. As Bobby admired the tennis racket and told Loeb what he knew, Loeb slowly pulled a chisel from under his jacket. He focused his eyes on the passenger seat in front of him, then stabbed Bobby several times in the back of the head. He then pulled Bobby's small body to the back seat and continued the heinous crime by gagging Bobby until he died. With the body on the floorboard and out of view, Leopold and Loeb drove to their predetermined dumping spot. They waited around in the car, chatting and laughing until nightfall. Then they removed and discarded Bobby's clothes and concealed his body in a culvert along the railroad tracks. To obscure Bobby's identity, they poured hydrochloric acid on his face. Once they realized the boy had been circumcised, they also poured hydrochloric acid on his genitals. They wanted absolutely nobody to be able to tell who this child was. By the time Leopold and Loeb returned to Chicago, word had already spread that Bobby Franks was missing. The boys, though, were still high on their thrill, and they wanted to prolong the feeling of being absolute menaces. So Leopold called Bobby's mother. He identified himself as George Johnson, and he told her that Bobby had been kidnapped. He also told her that he was the kidnapper and that he wanted a ransom for her son's return, and that she should wait by the phone for further instruction. Not satisfied with just a phone call, the boys mailed a typed ransom note to the Franks' home. Then they burned their blood-stained clothing, cleaned the bloodstains from the rented automobile, and then they spent the remainder of their night playing card games. The next morning, Leopold was ready to continue his sick game by making further ransom demands to the Frank family. But something stopped him dead in his tracks. Bobby Franks' body had been found. Leopold and Loeb hurriedly destroyed the typewriter, and then they tried to go on with their lives like nothing ever happened. And after a few days had passed without them being found out, the boys felt that they were invincible all over again, especially Leopold. He was so convinced that he was on top of things that he went around telling several people different theories on how and why the murder of Bobby Franks happened. He even told one detective,
"Hey, you know what? If I were to murder anybody, it would be just such a cocky little son of a bitch as Bobby Franks."
Now this was unbelievably stupid. But what would you expect from two boys who think they are the smartest people on the planet, and that everybody else around them were just robotic idiots? Turns out, though, Leopold and Loeb were the idiots that they thought others to be. Leopold had carelessly dropped his eyeglasses next to Bobby Franks' corpse when they were moving the body. Whoops! When police came to question him, he tried arrogantly to say that those could have been anybody's glasses. But unbeknownst to him, there were only 3 people in Chicago with those particular fitted glasses, and only one of those people had been offering up theories all around town on how and why they would have murdered Bobby Franks. With this type of evidence and stupidity, it wasn't long before both boys confessed. It was a sensational trial, pushed in the media as a case of forbidden passion between two men who took out their frustrations on a young, innocent child. The trial was deemed the trial of the century, and both boys' families hired the most expensive lawyers that money could buy. In the end, though, it was all for naught. On September the 10th, 1924, both Leopold and Loeb were sentenced to life in prison for murder, and then they had an additional 99 years for kidnapping. Richard Loeb went to prison lamenting his love for Leopold until the day he died on January the 28th, 1936, at the age of 30. And Nathan Freudenthal Leopold Jr. would use his smarts in prison to become a model prisoner, and he even managed to get an autobiography written. His horrid life of intelligence and crime finally came to an end on August the 29th, 1971, when he was aged 66 years old. Okay, what do you guys think? I have not done my strange stories in a minute, but that is because I am revamping my other channel to start trying to upload on a regular basis. Also, when I do start uploading, my voice will be much clearer than what you guys hear now. This is just a tester of how the new content on the other channel and podcast will be. Will you be watching? I certainly hope so. This is Ashley with Ashley Says So. I love y'all much, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.